Okay. Good morning. We're gonna continue talking about women halacha related shilas. The topic of this year was the role of a woman in shul. I got a few responses last night. As the answer was at home, so I'm gonna do my best. I'm doing my best. But yeah. So as follows. Today there's a world that exists already with women rabbanim and women mesorah and like the open Orthodox world and whatever. And that's not really the part of this that I want to talk about. That's, I think, by all accounts, beyond the pale. And I'm not going to really, maybe if we have some extra time at the end, I'll discuss it a little bit. But Be'ikr, I'm not really going to discuss that part of the shaila. I really want to talk about an interesting shaila, and that's regarding if women could say Kaddish in shul. If you've been to I don't know, really modern Orthodox shuls, you might have seen a woman say Kaddish in shul. I've seen it behind the mechitza, maybe peeking through, whatever, but saying Kaddish in shul. And it's a surprising thing is that, I will go through it a little bit, a lot of the poskim that you would think, should be very against it, and we're not that against it. And it's like this interesting mixed bag where the sikum is no, but how we get there is not so simple. Now, I want to start backwards, and we'll work our way all the way to the beginning. Rav Henkin, who we spoke about a few weeks ago, the Rav on the Lower East Side, he was a full Litvak. He came from Russia. He learned by Beis Zalman. We spoke about, right? A very Litvish person. He lived on the Lower East Side, and he was like the Pesach of America before Moshe was on the scene. And Rav Henkin, his grandson was someone by the name of Rav Hertz Henkin. He put out a sefer called Shailas Shuvas B'nai Banim. His wife, I believe it's his wife, I could be wrong. His wife, I think, is Rabbanit Chana Henkin, who's a very ardent Orthodox feminist, very, very big feminist. And because of that, a lot of Rav Henkin's psakim call it brought into the feminist world. And this is one interesting one that he brings down, Rav Hertz Henkin brings down in the tshuva. Make of it what you want, and then we'll work our way backwards. He brings as follows. He doesn't say the name, I wish he would. He says he has on good authority, he heard from a few different people, that one of the Gedolim in America, and you have to start by process of elimination, figure out who died without any sons. One of the Gedolim in America died without any sons, and his daughter came to my grandfather, Elio Henkin, and asked him if she could say Kaddish, and my grandfather allowed her to say Kaddish, and she said Kaddish. You have a guess? I don't know. I don't have a guess. I don't know. Exactly. Yeah. I don't have a guess. I don't know if anyone knows. I would love to know. He writes in the tshuva that he knows this on good authority. This is how it is. I don't know who he's referring to. He says it's one of the Gedolim in America, and he knows that it happened. Now, he's referring to a psak that Rav Henkin seemed to have given that allows women to say Kaddish. Now, what's even more interesting is that it seems that Rav Henkin was not the only one. Although if you'll take out a Likat Sefer, take out a Piskei Tshuvas on Kaddish, take out a Likat Sefer on Hilchas Kaddish, take out a Pnei Baruch on Hilchas Avelis, take out any Sefer, like a modern Likat Sefer, you will not find this day brought down B'chlal. The day that women could say Kaddish, you won't find it all brought down. But what's surprising is that it seems that in Litta, by the Litvish Gedolim, it was not such a big thing. They kind of let women say Kaddish. And we'll go through all the various different shittas. But I just wanted to, let's start with the ending. That he says that this happened, then we'll work our way back. So let's see how the shaila develops. You'll see this maybe makes a difference. You might be onto the Nakud already. Now, so there's a lot of different dinim in Kaddish. Kaddish is a big topic for itself, but Kaddish Yassim itself, there is no Gemara that says that when a father dies, the son says Kaddish. There's no Bavli, there's no Yerushalmi, there's no Tosefta. It's not a Gemara that says that when a father dies, the son says Kaddish for the father. Where it comes from, what it's based on, is a medrash. There's a medrash that's brought down in Masechtas Kala Rabasi. It's in the Tanchuma. The Zohar has a different version of it. I may have shared it in the past. I want to share the medrash quickly. There's the medrash, and maybe the version of the medrash might even make a difference to our shaila. The medrash brings down a story as follows. It says, Ma'aseh Rabbi Akiva, Shira Adam Echad Shaya Arum V'Shachar Kepechem. He was walking around. Now this is a vision. He saw someone who we wouldn't be able to see. Rabbi Akiva was walking around, and he saw a man who was naked and burnt like a charcoal briquette, like just a charred, a naked man walking around. Vayatan al Roshay Kitan Aseres Tuunim, and he was carrying 10 loads worth of weight on his head. Meaning he saw like a slave carrying tremendous amount of weight. He was naked and burnt. Vayaratz Kemrutzas Asus, and he was running as fast as he could. Gazer alav Rabbi Akiva v'Hamida. Rabbi Akiva made him stop. He tells him, Lama ta oisa avodah kasha kazais. What are you doing? What's going on over here? Rabbi Akiva was at some points in his life very wealthy. Rabbi Akiva said, if you're a slave and this is what your master is forcing you to endure, I'll free you. I'll buy you out. I'll free you. So the guy tells him, and then he says to him, Ani ata, if you're a poor man, Ani ma'asher ischa, I'll give you some money and you won't have to work like this. Rabbi Akiva felt bad for him. This man that Rabbi Akiva met says, please, don't even stop me. Don't bother talking to me. Just let me go. Because if I keep talking over here even for another second, those who are in charge of me are going to get very angry at me and they're going to beat me. So Rabbi Akiva says, what are you talking about? He tells him, this person that you see over here is a dead man. I'm not a live person. I'm a dead person who's walking around, that's working over here. And every day they send me to chop wood. I schlep all the wood, make a big pyre out of it, and then they burn me in that pile of wood. What was your activities? What did you do in the world that you came from? You see, I was a tax collector. I was a very influential person in the community, and I would take care of the rich people and I would hurt the poor people. This is what he says. Have you ever heard if there's a way out? Is there an end to this? Or this is just in perpetuity? You're going to be enduring this. I'm begging you, let me go. Stop talking to me. I can't be talking to you now. There's no fixing me. I'm stuck in the situation. If you keep talking to me, I'm going to end up getting in trouble. Eli says, I heard one thing that nothing I could do about it. He says, if this poor victim, whatever, this poor person who's getting the Inish would have a son, he says, I heard them saying that if this man, me, would have had a son who would be in Shul saying Baruch Hu, and the tzibur would be answering Baruch Hu to him, or he'd be saying Amen, Amen, and the tzibur would be answering Yesh Mirabba, then maybe there'd be a way out. So it says over here, Rabbi Akiva inquires about the guy's name, and then Rabbi Akiva goes on a whole fact-finding mission to find out where this guy lived and who he was, and he finds that Rabbi Akiva he goes to the town where this person used to live, and he finds that this person left behind a pregnant wife. Rabbi Akiva inquires about the pregnant wife and finds out that she had a son. Rabbi Akiva goes to the little hut at the edge of town where this woman is living, and he finds the son. It's a whole arichos in the medrash, and he tells the mother, I want to teach your son how to learn, how to daven, how to learn. And the mother says, nah, it's a waste of time. He begs, he forces, he cajoles. He finally gets to take the kid. And obviously, as it would have it, the kid was a shvach bal kishur, and he couldn't learn anything, couldn't understand anything. Rabbi Akiva didn't give up. He doubles down, he triples down, he makes sure it happens until, it says, Rabbi Akiva teaches him, and he goes to shul, and he says, Baruch Hashem v'varech, v'anu akal Baruch Hashem v'varech, le'levad, v'adis kadol v'giskad shmei rabba. At that instant, when this son was finally ready to go to shul and say Kaddish for the father, then they were matir the father from Peranius, and the father goes on his way. And it says, the medrash ends off, Rabbi Akiva met the father, and the father tells him, you made me so happy, you should be zeichet to happiness, and that's the story. Now, this is a medrash that's brought down in various different versions in different places, and this is, according to most achronim, the makar for saying Kaddish, for Kaddish Yasam. Now, it's not a Gemara, it's not a Bavli, it's not a Shami like we said, but there is a source that tells some sort of story, and I got it the story of Rabbi Akiva bumping into a dead person. Now, what's interesting over here is, if you look at the Nusach of the Medrash, it clearly says, this person heard, that if I would have had a son, if hiniach ben, then there'd be some sort of takana. And then furthermore, when Rabbi Akiva goes to look for him, it says Rabbi Akiva finds out that he has a pregnant wife, and it says he goes to check him hiniach ben, im yolda ben. Now you could say that just means to see if she wasn't yolda nefel, but again it says im yolda ben. Rabbi Akiva went to inquire, did she actually give birth to a son? So now the pashtus lashon of this medrash, which is the makar for Kaddish Yasam, seems to imply that Kaddish Yasam is only applicable to boys. It doesn't apply to girls. Girls can't do this. Now, the kasha is that girls are also mitzvah in the mitzvah of Kiddush Hashem, and Kaddish Yasam is really just about being Kaddish Hashem Shemayim Barabim. It's really about just one person leading a minyan of Asar and people being Kaddish Hashem Shemayim Barabim. But mitzvah sheni, girls are not mitzvah for a minyan. So let's see. This is the original source. Now, the earliest tshuva that talks about it is the Chavas Yair. And what's interesting is, although most of the poskim that I'm going to read from the tshuvas that talk about it say not to do it, say that women shouldn't say Kaddish, or they provide very specific limitations to it, when a shaila keeps coming up again and again, like when you see it in the Chavas Yair, and then the Knesses Yechaskel, then the Shvus Yaakov, then the Mata Ephraim, then the Chayna, that means it was happening. It's the rule always of shailas. If they come up too often, it means it's happening. A one-off question that pops up in a tshuva somewhere and you never see it again, okay, it means it was not something that was very common. When it comes up 8 times in different tshuvas, some written in Poland, some written in Germany, some written in Prague, Bohemia, then you know that this is something that was happening in different places. That's the diak. Now, the Chavas Yair is in Tshuva Reish Chaf Beis. It's a short tshuva. I'll try to read most of it. He says as follows. Davar zar nasa Amsterdam. We'll force him sham now. Okay, he's right away he's telling you off the bat that this is a prevalent minig in Amsterdam. It's happening in Amsterdam, in the From Kiel in Amsterdam. She'echad neder b'li ben. If someone dies without a child, v'tzivel v'nei petirasei sheyilmudu asara kol yom teich yud beis chodesh b'beis b'scharam, and he hires like a kollel to learn in his house for 12 months. V'achar limud tamer habas Kaddish, and after the limud, the daughter says Kaddish. V'lei michu b'yad chachmei akil v'parnasim. And the people who are running the Kil in Amsterdam, the Chachmei Kil and the Parnasim, are not meicha b'chlal about this. So here you have minig number one. You see clearly that in Amsterdam, in the From Kehila, not to say in Shul, but the minig was that the person who died without children would hire a kollel in his house, and over there they'd make like their own minion, so to speak, and the daughter would say Kaddish. It says, V'afkein raya lister adavar. The Chavis Yair says, I don't have a klar raya to be seiser it. Ki gam isha mitzvah al Kiddush Hashem. And isha is mitzvah on the mitzvah of Kiddush Hashem. Gam yesh minyan scharim mikub b'nei Yisrael. And there's a minion of men there. She's not being mitzvah for the minion. She's not being mighty them with any chiv that they have. She's just being Kaddish Shem Shemayim. What's wrong with it? Even though the story in the Medrash is referring to Ben Zachar, there's a svara that could say that a daughter also could bring nachas ruach and schus for her father. Kizarihi, lemaisa, she's his child. And this is a very important punchline. He says, if they're going to allow this, that the daughters could go to the house and say Kaddish with a minion of men in the house, it's going to be machlish the koyach of minhagim of Klal Yisrael. Shagam kein Torah. Minhagim are also Torah. And each person will decide what he thinks is the Kiddush Shem Shemayim, and that's what he's going to do. And the Rabbanan is going to look like a chuchah tlula, and people are going to be mizalzel in it. So here the Chavis Yair, who opens it up and says, I hear this minig that exists. It's not the kilu, the end of the world. I hear where they're coming from, that it's a schus for the father. She is his child. But Lamaisa, this is not the way the minig always was in Klal Yisrael. And it's a episode zilzul in minhagim to do this, and that's why I think it's not okay. That's what the Chavis Yair says. Now, what's interesting is that there are two different minhagim that we know of from two different shuvas that seem to have not been so makbid on this. Shuva number one, and this is a fascinating shuv me'ava, it brings a totally different minig. It's not the same minig as what the Chavis Yair is writing about, but again, it's daughter saying Kaddish. The shuv me'ava in Chelik Beis, he brings the shuva as follows. He says, Re'isi b'kili Kaddish Prague, minig yafa me'akadmainim. I saw a beautiful minig, he says, an old minig that exists. Be'ezras Beis Knesses kloizin, in the kloiz shul, sham yashvu zakenim uskenis, ivrim upischim b'shachris mishachris ad eis tzarayim. This is a form of a daycare center. They would bring the elderly adults, men and women, to sit there from morning until night. Now they didn't do puzzles or watch television, so b'chol yom kol sefer tehillim. Every day the zakenim would say the whole sefer tehillim. V'noyegim mishalei neach acharav banim kiyim banos. If someone would nebuch die and didn't leave over any sons, he only left over daughters, ketanos, b'nois chamesh v'shei shanim, like 5 or 6 years old, Oimrim Sham HaKaddish. They would go to the nursing home, so to speak, and say Kaddish for the old people. So it's a similar minig to I can imagine this almost, right? Like this is kids going to nursing home to be mesamech, the elderly. This is what it was. They would take these yisaimis, these 4 or 5 year old yisaimis, to the nursing home, to the equivalent of a nursing home, to the kloizes as nashim, and they would say Kaddish for the older people there. The Shumei says to say it in the shul, the regular shul, that I never heard me'olam. That's what the Shumei says. Now the Shvus Yaakov is even a little bit more mekel. The Shvus Yaakov says as follows. The Shvus Yaakov in his tshuva says like this. He says, Nifter, the shayla that he's being asked is a little bit different. He says, Nifter ish echad, he left over 2 daughters. A guy dies, he has no children, no sons, he left over 2 daughters, a 4-year-old and a 2-year-old. Now he also has a father who's alive still. And the shayla would want, and as follows, and in his house it says, he gave his daughters to say Kaddish in his house. He makes some sort of minion, some sort of kinnis. They paid to have 10 men come to the house, and his little daughters, his 4-year-old, is saying Kaddish in the house where he lives. Now his father comes to shul, and his father says, I want to say a schus, to say Kaddish in shul for my son. Now, keep in mind, the Shvus Yaakov is writing in a time when Kaddishim were split up. You didn't have a Kaddish choir. That's a more modern invention. It used to be, Avelim would say Kaddish, each one would get a slot. You would get a certain particular one, or a certain amount per year, or a certain amount per week. It really depended on if you were a member in good standing, like if your dues were all paid up, you got Kaddish. If you didn't, there's a lot of shaylas related to that, and maybe at one point we'll do Hilchas Kaddish. It's actually a very interesting sugya. But the Shvus Yaakov was writing in that time, so now this is a big negotiation. The father comes and he says, I have a son who died, he didn't leave over any children, nobody's saying Kaddish for him, I want to say Kaddish for him. And the Shvus Yaakov ends up saying that the father does not have a schus to say Kaddish in shul, because Bra Mizaka Abba, Abba Le Mizaka Bra. You're not the one who's supposed to be Mizaka your child. And Va'oidi says, the guy left over daughters, Benidin Shilfanenu, Shekvar Bas, Shaimeres Kaddish Bebayis Eitzel Minyan. He left over a daughter who's saying Kaddish in the house with a minion. Ki Beis Knesses Bevade in Lahaniach Lolemer Kaddish Klal. Of course, in the shul, we're not going to let the girl say Kaddish, but in the house, she's saying Kaddish. Here the Shvus Yaakov says that it's considered like the father has, whatever the mila that Kaddish is, the father has it being done for him already because he has his daughter saying Kaddish in the house. So Shvus Yaakov writes, of course, in shul, I'm not going to say to bring it, but in the house, yeah, this Kaddish being said, and then that's already something. This is what the Shvus Yaakov writes in his Shuvah in Chelik Beis, Simon Tzadik Gimel, if you want to look it up. So this is the Shvus Yaakov's psak. Now this opens it up even a little further. Interestingly, and this I don't know who this person is, but in Leket Kamach HaChadash, which is a great sefer in Archaim, he brings down Shamati b'Bachrusi. He says, "L'saper mehagoyin likutei Beis Ephraim." I'm not sure who this likutei Beis Ephraim is. Shenolda bas le'esek knusa. He left over one daughter when he was an old man. V'limad ima bekatnusa kaddish, and he taught her kaddish as a little girl. The nearer the samach al Shvus Yaakov b'Beis lekabet minyan riktana les lamba. He was samach on the Shvus Yaakov to be makabet a minyan in his house and let the daughter say kaddish. So you have a lot of different occurrences popping up in all different places of people saying Kaddish, girls saying Kaddish for their fathers in different places. Now the Knesses Yechaskel, who writes about it also, he's a German Rav, Rabbi Yechaskel Katzenellenbogen, he writes, She'ein Omer Kaddish Shum Nekeva. When he gets the Shaila, he says, no, girls don't ever say Kaddish like it says in Shus Yaakov. So you have a mixed bag of the psakim, meaning sometimes the place was saying girl can't say Kaddish, it does nothing for the father, it's nothing. Mashal the Ben Ish Chai in his Tshuva in Terry Lishma writes that it's not even a schus for the father. And sometimes you have them writing that you could do it at home with a minion at home, but Beni, you see that it was happening. If it keeps cropping up in every one of these places, you see that it was happening. Now, Rabbi Ephraim Zal Margolius in the Mat Ephraim, he writes a pretty extensive, takedown of the whole tzad to say Kaddish, of girls to say Kaddish, and I want to read you what he says. But before that, I just want to, 1 second, I can't find the second, but Reb Moshe, just to highlight what we're saying, that if you see the Shaila keeps coming up, then it means it was happening. Reb Moshe in his tshuva, in Archaim Chelikei in Siman Yud Beis, he's writing about mechitzas and shul, nothing to do with Kaddish. Reb Moshe writes, Shebachol hadeiris nagul shelifnim hoisen echnases isha ani lebeis hamedrash. All the deiris, it was always common and prevalent that women would come into shul, women aniyim would come into shul, lekabel tzedakah, to get tzedakah, oy avela leimer Kaddish, or a woman who was in avelis to say Kaddish. Reb Moshe writes a klachiyad, like Mesiach Levitumah. He's not even talking about it. It was Mesiach Levitumah. It was always in the prevalent in the earlier deiris that women came into shul to say Kaddish. So you see that this observation, that if it's quoted, if the Shaila keeps coming up in 8 different Shuvas for him, then it means that it was something that was common, something that was transpiring. Reb Moshe knew that as a pashtus, and he just writes it like klachiyad. Now the Mat Ephraim writes as follows. He says as follows: Misha ein lebanim. Someone who doesn't have children, rak bas, only a daughter. But and he wants to hire 10 people to learn. The daughter would say Kaddish. Says the Mat Ephraim, ein lishmayalei. Don't even let him make this minion in his house. You should be moicha. This is already much more strong, much more strident position. Don't allow it, and you should be moicha if he tries to do it. Mikol shekain she'ein laniach she'taim Kaddish al tefillah. And zicher, the woman can't say Kaddish for tefillah. Vafilim hi pnuya. Even if she's a pnuya, she's not a married woman, asura. And for sure she shouldn't be mashmiya her voice l'rabim b'amiras kaddish. Bein Beis Knesses, bein b'minyan, whether it's in her house, whether it's a minyan, elam tirtza litzkes is aviyah tiyazahir b'chalitis hatfilah. She should just daven. Come to davening always. Bein Beis Knesses, bein b'minyan, wherever she wants, she should daven. She should answer amen to other people's kaddeshim with kavanah. She should never be the one saying kaddish. Like Ubezeh says, Yachshev la ki'ilu amra v'kima mitzvahs aviyah. And if she answers Amen Yesh Merabah to other people's Kaddeshim, it will be as if she was Mekayim her father's words and said Kaddish. And Elef Lamata on the bottom, he's Moisiv, he says as follows: Well, Lefiani is Daiti, the Bizman Hazeh, the Shchiach Pritusa. Now he's writing this, imagine, in the early 1800s. But in our days, he says, when it's Shchiach Pritusa, Ein Lasses Kain, Shetem Rabbas Kaddish. I feel B'minim B'bayis. You can't have a woman saying Kaddish even with a minim B'bayis. I feel Achar Limud. V'afa Bisha Ein B'zeh Mishom Kol Bisha Erva, Mikol Makom Karv Shahid Techavan L'Basum Mikala. So even though I'm not going to tell you it's Kol Bisha Erva because she's not singing, she's just chanting a Kaddish, but it's Karav L'David that she's going to try to make her voice sound good, and then it could even be Kol Bisha Erva. Amrina and Zamri Nash, and this he goes on. So the Mat Ephraim is much, much more stark, saying no Kaddeshim for women ever under any circumstance. Now, so here I guess I could say you have a mixed bag of the various different chaymer that's attached to it. You have the Shvus Yaakov, you have the Chavos Yair and the Knesses Yechaskel who are saying no women saying Kaddish. So the Shvus Yaakov, the Chavos Yair, is open to the idea of why a woman would want to, or maybe why it could even work, but he says don't do it. The Shvus Yaakov, much more makel. In the house, she could do it. He doesn't even let the grandfather of his chus say Kaddish because the girls are staying in the house. You have the Tshuva Me'ava telling you the minig in Prague that the girls did it in the nursing home. You have the Beis Ephraim, the Shar Ephraim, who lives in Brod in Poland, who's telling you don't do it b'shemoifin, which means people were doing it, and he's telling you to be meicha, don't allow it b'shemoifin. And then you have Rav Moshe being made l'mesiach v'tumah that it exists. Now let's fast forward to call it modern feminism to America. So Rav Henkin, to go back to where we started from, has a fascinating tshuva. It's a short tshuva. It's in Tshuvas Ivra, in Kisvei Rav Henkin, in Tshuvas Ivra Chelik Beis. He writes as follows. He says, V'al dvar HaKaddish, regarding Kaddish, he says, Im nairi chelu lemer Kaddish b'Beis HaKnesses. Could the girls say Kaddish? Nairi, the young girls, say Kaddish in the Beis HaKnesses. Hine kvar dibru b'zeh b'achronim. Like we just showed, it's an alta topic. Everybody discussed it in the achronim. U'b'chol zeh, he says, putting aside, I'm aware of whatever you're going to tell me, all the tshuvas, all the b'chol zeh. Putting it all aside, he says, Zachreni should be al-dusi. I remember when I was a kid. Now, when he's a kid, it's like early 1900s. Amra nairi Kaddish l'fnei anashim b'kihilish l'chasidim v'yireim in the Chassidish Shul. He says, I remember that I don't know, it doesn't have to mean that. Chassidim v'yireim could just mean a way of saying that they were good people, they were from. So I remember that they said, why not? Let's blame the Chassidim. Why not? He says, I remember that they said it in the Shul of Chassidim v'yireim. V'yada kvay teirasei she'af Kaddish al anashim emenim ru'uyim liyashatz yesh l'fakib v'harbe. He says a lot of the men who say Kaddish, they're no better off. They also shouldn't be saying Kaddish. Saying Kaddish b'tzibur is like a sheikh tzibur. Sheikh tzibur has to be hagun. You can't have any Michal Shabbos come and say Kaddish in shul. And even so, machzikim in Kaddish l'davar hagun. Still, we make sure that people who need to say Kaddish of all stripes come to shul and say Kaddish. Why? Sheyidua, because we understand she'lulei Kaddish, if not for the Kaddish, hayu nimnoim harbim milalamedes b'neim tefillah. If not for the fact that people wanted to leave over a kid to say Kaddish, a Kaddish zoger, a Kaddishul for them after they die, they wouldn't even teach their kids how to daven. They wouldn't come to shul. Once they're coming to say Kaddish, they become a little bit more connected to Yadus the rest of the year. He says, even if the girls want to say it. It causes them to be close to Yadus. She needs to stand behind the mechitza. V'sham tisbal, that's what she should daven. V'gam sham temer Kaddish, that's where she says Kaddish. V'tidchik v'tikanos l'fnim me'amechitza v'shas Kaddish. Now listen to this. As if she squeezes in, she needs to pop her head in or stand in the men's section while she says Kaddish. V'kivin shestama gam acherim me'am Kaddish ki aminig achsha shirab me'am Kaddish la'ichvas lan. No. If she squeezes her way into the main men's sanctuary, she leaves the as a snashim, and she comes in and could say Kaddish. The men are really saying Kaddish. You don't really hear her. She's just batal b'roiv. All the tshuvas from the achronim, and here he finally addresses it. All the tshuvas from the achronim that were against it. The minig was that one individual said Kaddish at a time. For a nekeva to go up to the amud, to stand where the person saying Kaddish was and go lead the whole tzibur, that's a pritzusa. That's of course not acceptable. That can't happen. But that they couldn't allow. The minig was the one individual was saying Kaddish would go up to the front and say Kaddish for everybody. Now everybody says it where they are in shul, and there's a lot of people saying it. It's a whole choir. Don't push it away too hard. But it's better she should stand behind the mechitza. So Henkin opens like a much more, I call liberal point of view to this whole Kaddish thing. He's like, it's a little bit worth it, it's good, it brings them to shul, it keeps them connected to Yiddishkeit, and it's just a geferlach, there's no kol b'isha erva, the achronim weren't really talking about this, and everything could be okay. Now, some people obviously want to take this much further, and from there maybe learn that a woman can be part of a minyan. We're not even going to go into that. But obviously, Rav Henkin's tshuva in the various Rabbanim Day and Apardes, I printed it out. I don't know, I'm not going to read all the bikuris, have major bikuris and are pushing back. How are you talking to say this? It's going to lead to Memchilas Kvay Teirasa. It's a svara ba'alma. How could you say this? Such a thing. And a lot of people will chelik on him. Now, what's interesting is that there's a tshuva from, not tshuva, whatever, an article in Hadarom, like a Torah periodical that comes out from the RCA, where there's a guy, his name is Rabbi Wolofsky, Yoel Wolofsky. I think he was the dean of Yeshiva Flapish, maybe. I don't know where he's up to, but he over there collected different psukim. He spoke to Rabbi Soloveitchik from Boston, who told him that it's not so gefährlich for girls to say Kaddish in shul together with the men, as long as there's men saying Kaddish. And of course, he also threw in, and I remember that back in Lita, where I grew up, there was always women coming to shul to say Kaddish. It wasn't like it was something that happened. And then Rabbi Orlovsky says, he quotes, he doesn't say the name, but he says he went to he must have lived in Bar Park. He davened in the Mirror Minyan in Bar Park with a lot of the Alta Mirrors, and he spoke to various different Alta Mirrors, and one of them told him that he remembers in Vilna, he grew up in Vilna, that there was girls whose father died without leaving over boys, and Rav Chaim Oizer used to let them say Kaddish in Shul. Rav Chaim Oizer let them come say Kaddish in Shul, as long as you say quietly in the back behind the mechitza, everything, it's not such a big deal. So you have, what's interesting to me, additionally, Rabbi Taplin from Lakewood, Rabbi Saul Taplin, spoke to Rabbi Scheinberg. Rabbi Scheinberg told him also that he remembers always. He said, "I don't know the shaila, they shouldn't. I remember when I was a kid, it was commonplace that they said." So what's interesting to me is a fascinating thing. It's like you have the chuvas from 300-400 years ago are against it. They say don't do it, don't allow it, only in the house. You have a lot of different gviyas edison, meaning you can tell me one of them is a mistake, one of them is not true, but you have like Rav Moshe, Rav Hinken, Rav Soloveitchik, Rav Scheinberg. You have a lot of different gviyas edison that people, the Altamir is telling Rav Vilna, telling gviyas edison that Zichar in the Litvish world, it was something that happened. I can't tell you how much, how little. Hayos is something that got washed away by the sands of time and it's gone. It's something that happened. And then you have Ardar, Art Kufa, where it went away. To me, it seems that the more weaponized it was, the more poskim were against it. Meaning in the beginning of Haskalah, when it was a weapon, when it was like a weapon, it was a thing, so the poskim were very against it. Don't allow it, no Kaddishim. When it became commonplace, like in the early 1900s, call it, in from cities and from shuls, they looked the other way. The Rabbanim looked the other way. When it came back to a time of like, call it modern feminism, orthodox feminism, it became like a hot button issue again, then it became something we totally don't do again. So it could be in 100 years they'll do it again, and then in 200 years they won't do it again. It's just an interesting study in the cycle of this minig. All right, to be continued.
You've just experienced another Torah class brought to you by TorahAnytime.com.